So take your time. Once you've got a chair, and we can park the chair over on the side for right now. You might have a couple of blocks. They're not essential, but they could be helpful. And maybe a bolster or a pillow wrapped in a blanket. And I'd invite you to start off maybe on that bolster or a block as a comfy seat, finding your way into a comfortable seated place. And as you get there, you might find you need a little wiggle, something needs a roll or a stretch. And take your time, no rush, no hurry. And when your seat becomes comfortable, take a moment to shift your attention and notice your breath. And starting to arrive here on your mat. Noticing if there are any sensations in the body. And if you find something that needs movement while you notice, that's okay too. Go right ahead. And then you might notice if it feels like you're doing a lot of work to sit up tall today. It feels like if you let your body relax, things might go into a different shape. And just notice those pieces. And maybe becoming aware if you feel awake and energetic this morning, if you feel kind of tired and sluggish, just noticing how you feel. And then we'll start today's practice off with a series of tapping or thumping movements that are targeting points on the different meridians or the nadis in the body. And there's a set of 4. We'll start with the stomach meridian, which is just on the lower edge here of your cheekbone. So if it's comfortable to touch your face, you might poke around for a moment and find the bumps here that your cheekbones make. And then kind of poke around the bottom and there's almost like a little point that you can feel there. And you can be really gentle, especially if it feels really sore, and just draw a couple of circles or take a couple light taps there. If it feels okay, you can actually tap there pretty vigorously. And breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. We'll do that again. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And you can also just draw circles in the air over the cheekbones, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then take a little pause and just notice how things are feeling. Maybe you're thinking, oh good, now I don't have to thump my face anymore. And you might just notice if anything feels a little bit more awake. And then give your hands a little rub together and then a little shake off to the side. And then we'll find kidney 27. This is the end of the kidney meridian. It's in just under this inner edge of the collarbone and down about an inch. And again, you could draw a circle in the air over it. You could just gently press and circle. You can thump lightly, or if it's comfortable, you can really thump. Sometimes you can press the fingers and thumb together to make like a little point to thump. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. So this point is really cool because they say it helps to get your energies flowing in the right direction. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. We'll thump here, just one more breath. And then we'll come down toward the center of the sternum. This is the place where the thymus gland sits. And thumping here is thought to help to boost your immunity. And it can also help you feel more alert and awake. So again, you might just tap very gently. You might draw a circle, or if it feels good to thump, this is like the Tarzan thump. It's okay to make sounds too. At least right now, if you're taking the class live, you're muted, so you can make ah sounds if you want. But try to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. That's helping us take in what we need and let go of what we don't. And one more breath here. And then our last set of thumps is for the spleen meridian. And we can either go here on the low ribs in the front, or we can try middle ribs on the sides. And you can kind of explore both. They say if one is a little more tender, that's usually a spot that needs focus. And these guys, if they're tender, you might just draw a few circles, you might take a gentle tap, or if it's comfortable, you can really thump here. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And so these spleen points, they're thought to help with your immune function too. Your spleen helps produce some of the white blood cells that you need. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And let's take just one more breath here again, maybe thumping in the front or on the sides. And then give your hands a shake off to the side. And rest the palms, either palm down for a sense of grounding or palm up for a sense of openness. And just tune in and notice how you feel. Do things feel alert and awake? Do you just feel grateful that you don't have to thump anymore? And then just notice how you're seated. If it felt like it took a lot of work to sit up tall when you started, just notice if things feel different after that work. And then if you're seated in a cross-legged shape, switch the leg that's in front. We'll start to bring some movement to the body now. And as we bring movement, what I'd like you to do is to notice and to feel the movement, but to notice if there's any kind of story that you tell yourself or any kind of commentary that goes, like a sports commentator might say, and now they're running down the field and doing this. Just notice if there's anything like that going on for you as we bring some motion in. We'll start off by taking a little side bend, and we'll start really gentle with both fingertips on the ground. And when you take an exhale, find a little bend to one side. Inhale it back up to center. And if it feels good to stay low, you can keep the fingertips down. Or you might try taking the hands toward the back of the head, opening the elbows out wide. When you exhale, tip one elbow down, and then you might even let that hand grow to the mat. But see if you can keep the other up, helping the collarbones open. Inhale at top. You can send palms to the mat or keep the hands behind the head as we take one more exhale to the side. Maybe the bottom hand reaches down, maybe the top arm grows out like the arms were making one long line. And if you feel like you need to reach up and over, you sure can. Making a long line with the side body. Or just maybe play with having the arms in line and notice how that feels. Then inhale it back up to center. Both fingertips reach tall if it's comfy. Exhale, hinge from the hips. Swan dive forward for a forward bend. Your forward bend might just be a few inches, or you might be hinging and folding. Breathing when you arrive here. As you find the inhale, pressing your way back up to center. Give the shoulders a shrug and a roll. And then send the fingertips back to the mat. Inhale the spine up long. Exhale, finding that side bend, side two. And just notice if there's any commentary going in your mind while you do this. Sometimes our brains like to say, oh yeah, now Sam's gonna do the hands behind the head thing. Exhale, take one elbow down. And you can stay put here, or maybe that hand gives you a little support. And seeing if we can open that elbow up, collarbone stay long. Inhale back up to center. And we'll take one more. Exhale to the side, and maybe this time we play with lengthening the arm, making one long line with the arms, which usually means reaching up and over, but sometimes it's a little more up, sometimes a little more over. You can play with lengthening the side body, making a long line there if it feels good. And then we'll inhale it back up tall, both fingertips or both hands come up. Exhale, hinge from the hips, folding forward, softening down. And taking a breath toward the low back. And then as you inhale, we'll start to make our way toward all fours. So you might be folding forward here, or you might press the hips around. Now, if you have anything going on with a grumpy wrist today, and you have your blocks handy, we can use the blocks to give us space to settle the forearms down so that we're pretty close to our all fours shape, but we're still on the elbows and we can give those wrists a break. It is okay to also work with elbows right on the mat, though that sometimes changes the angle of the back. It can feel different. As you exhale, we'll round up for our cat. And inhale, gentle arch for cow. And when we cat cow, we often like to go as far as we can go, right? We're exploring our limits. But I'd invite you too to practice mini cat and cow, or kitten and calf. You take a little inhale, just a little cow, and just a little cat. What do you notice? And then just check in and see, does your mind say, oh, don't like that, like to go as far as I can go all the time? Is there anything interesting to explore with calf and kitten? Like maybe noticing what part of your back moves first with just that mini version. And then feel free, if you'd like to go back to the full version, you're welcome to. And you can stay here with cat-cow if you like, or you might start to settle the hips back toward the heels, taking a little child pose. And you might rest your head on your mat or your hands and gently rock the head side to side, massaging that eyebrow area. And you can rest and stay still. Or you might walk the fingertips over to one side and then settle the hips back away from the hands. So you'll notice these side body movements in today's class. They help support the spleen and the gallbladder meridian. And those are ones that can use a little extra support as we head into winter and often eat foods that are a little bit richer. Inhale back towards center. Exhale up and over toward side two. And think of settling your hips away from your hands. Inhale back towards center when you're ready. Yogi's choice, stay and rest if it feels good. Just settling into the mat. If you're craving movement, you might take your 3 vinyasa flows, curling the toes under and exhaling to down dog. And then inhaling to your plank. Knees chest chin or chaturanga, cobra or up dog. and down dog. And take your time, no rush, no hurry. Noticing your breath. And you might notice again, what influences your choice? Is it listening to your body and noticing how things feel in that moment? Or is it your brain thinking, I should do this? And sometimes your brain is right, but just notice what influences your choice. And then when you're ready, we'll start to make our way back to meet on all fours on the mat. Now again, if there's a grumpy wrist and it doesn't feel good to be on all fours, we might be working here from the elbows. And we'll walk the hands or the elbows forward for our puppy stretch. Now either way, elbows down or up. We want to think about spinning the biceps up toward the ceiling. And then as you inhale, slide and glide forward, settling down to the belly on the mat. And as you find your belly, decide if it feels good to bend the knees and rock the heels. And take a moment to see how your body feels in this shape. How's your brain do with it? Does your brain start doing locust or bow pose here, even if your body's still resting on the belly? And just notice, and then when you're ready, let's start to walk the feet back one at a time. And you can really lifting the thigh, reaching the foot back, lengthening the leg. This helps open up that psoas area in the front of the hip. And then with the feet back long, we're going to keep the legs active, like the tops of the feet. We're holding down your mat. And then with those long legs, we'll start to tuck the fingertips in toward the edges of the ribs. Roll the shoulders back from the ears. Inhale, curling up toward a baby cobra. Top of the head reaches forward. We can think of the sternum and the sacrum moving apart from each other. And then we might stay here if that feels best. For our next inhale, might take us up toward cobra. Trying not to lift the chin, trying to keep a long spine, lengthen the back of the neck. And then when you exhale, settle it back down to the belly. Notice if there's any echoes of the pose. And we might bend the knees and rock the heels a little side to side. Now yogi's choice, you might stay put right here and just rest on the mat. Or we might take a moment to draw one heel in closer to the hip. And then we might just explore if we were to reach back, if we connect. No worries if we don't. We might just stay here and reach. If you do connect, you can explore pressing the hand into the foot and the foot into the hand without lifting. And you might feel that engage the front of the thigh, the front of the hip, and the front of the shoulder. Or if you feel ready to lift, go ahead and flex the foot, hand holds the ankle. Inhale, pressing and supporting yourself with the opposite elbow to come up for our half bow pose. How's your breath here? And then for fun, you might explore if you let go of the foot. If you took both elbows down, lengthened the back of the neck, what would happen if you reached back with the opposite hand? Would you just be reaching? Would you connect? And we want to be careful we don't pull the knee out to the side. We want to keep that knee hugging in close. But we might play with this on side 2 as well. How's your breath? And is there any commentary that goes with this pose? Exhale, gently release the leg down. Take both elbows in just under the shoulders. Finding Sphinx. Little length in the back of the neck. Exhale, soften to the mat. Feel free to bend and rock if it feels good. Or if you'd like a little challenge, a little oomph before we switch sides, you can play with this bottom of a push-up movement. So we widen the hands. The elbows are wide, they head out to the side. We engage the bandhas, Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, or think about drawing the belly in and up toward the ribs. And then we might start to press. And just explore if you could press up toward the knees like a little kneeling push-up. Explore if you can float it down. So this is more challenging than lowering down. So you might only be pressing just a whisker. If you have a grumpy wrist, you might not even put any weight on the hand. You might just imagine that you were pressing up. Or you can explore it if you like. Just help me to wake up some of the muscles in the upper body. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry. We'll meet back on the belly. Feel free to give things a rock. And then we'll reach that left heel in close toward the hip. And we might stay put here. Or we might start to reach the hand on the same side back. And just see if they connect. This side could be different. So we might just reach. Or if we connect, we might play with pressing hand to foot and foot to hand without moving the leg. You might feel the shoulder roll open a little. And that can help wake up the hip, the thigh, the shoulder. We can stay put there. Or flex the foot, press foot into hand, helping to lift, maybe using that opposite elbow for support. And then again, we can play with maybe floating the thigh, if it feels comfy on the back. And can you breathe here in half bow? And then maybe we explore releasing the hand on the same side. And see what happens if we reach back with the opposite side. And just watch out that the knee doesn't get drawn out away from the midline. That puts more pressure on the low back when the knees go wide. And we can press and lift. We can breathe. We can come down at any point if it's not feeling good. And then when you're ready, gently release the ankle. But send the elbow to the mat. Take a moment in cobra. Legs are long and active. We're reaching the sternum and the sacrum in opposite directions. And then exhale, settle down to the mat. Yogi's choice. Bend the knees and rock. Simply rest. Or you're welcome to try a little bit of bow pose if you'd like. Now, the big thing about bow is a lot of us widen the knees to make it easier to reach our feet. But when we do that, that can put more pressure in the low back. So trying to keep the knees together or in line with the hips is helpful. And if you have your block, you can tuck your block in between the knees. That'll give you a little feedback here. And if you're able to lift without taking the knees out to the side. So you might play with this just down on the mat first. Hug the heels in close. And just see if you can reach back to connect. And you might just stay here. Or if you can connect, you might just press Feet into hands, hands into feet. And just open here in place. Or maybe we take a little flex and press and lift toward bow. Can you hug the belly button in? Can you breathe when you're there? And when you're ready, gently release it down. And take a moment to see if anything needs a rock. You can maybe move the block if it was there. And just notice if there's any commentary for your mind. Any thoughts on what's flexible or inflexible? And then bring your attention back with this next breath, filling it in toward the belly. Exhale if there were any thoughts that were not kind or compassionate. Let them go with the exhale. Yogi's choice, stay and rest and reverse Shavasana. You can shift back to child pose if you'd rather for your rest. Or there's time for 3 vinyasa floats. Moving from our down dog to plank. Knees, chest, chin. Cobra or up dog. And down dog. And take your time, no rush, no hurry with it. Finding what feels best to flow or rest, or if there's something else you can tell your body's craving, like a little attention for the wrists or ankles, go right ahead and take care of that as well. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry. We'll start to make our way back toward all fours. And we are preparing to work our way up. So as you find all fours, you might curl the toes under, inhale toward your cow. Exhale, shift and lift the hips high, downward facing dog. Think of spinning the biceps forward. And pedal in. Feel free to walk the feet a little wide. And then as you exhale, we'll start to step, walk, or hop our way to the top of the mat. I need forward bend. Gentle nod yes or slow shake no. Exhale, bend the knees, settle the hips back behind. Engage the core as you inhale toward chair, Utkatasana. Maybe fingertips float. And then we'll come all the way up for Tadasana. Oh, now I'm the, you can't see my head. That's okay, we're headed toward the chair next. But you might take a moment first to find your Tadasana. Just noticing where you can anchor down through the feet. Noticing now that you're upright, first time you've been upright in this class, noticing how things feel. And then if your chair isn't already on your mat, bring your chair so that at least 2 of the legs are on your mat. We'll come back in front of the chair, and when you exhale, we'll sit the hips back toward our chair pose, not putting our hips down on it yet, but just exploring chair with a chair behind us. And then when you're ready, exhale, come down and have a seat in the chair. Take a moment to get comfy in your chair, and this is a spot you may use a block as well. For me, my legs are kind of short. And so for me to have my feet nice and flat on the floor, it's helpful to have a block under them when I'm in the chair, or I have to really scoot to the edge of it. So your choice. You might tuck blocks in under the feet if you'd like to sit back. Or your chair and your legs might not create that situation for you. And then take a moment to just see where your mind is at. Is your brain thinking, oh, chair yoga, this is going to be nice and easy? Or is your brain thinking, oh, I was in a chair all week, I don't want to be in a chair now? Just notice if there's any kind of stuff popping up around the chair. And we'll start off with a gentle movement in the chair, which is our seated twist. Take an inhale, bring the spine up nice and tall, pressing up through the crown. As you exhale, we'll take a gentle twist, and if your chair has a back, you might see if an arm can find the back for a little support. And can you take your shoulders back from your ears when you're here? And then let's inhale our way back towards center. Exhale, finding your twist. And you can stay put just like this. Or you might explore what would happen if you started to take the hand on the leg and move it up behind the head. Now this is a little weird because we are twisting one way, but you're gonna send that elbow the opposite direction. And notice how it feels. Inhale it back to center. Release any places that feel tight. Sitting tall with the next inhale. Exhale, let's find that twist, same side, one more time. Maybe we just stay put like this. Maybe we take the hand to the head and then send your elbow away from the direction that you're looking. Nice work. Exhale, release it all back to center. See what needs a shift. And before we go to side two, we'll take this funny little movement. This is called the cross shoulder pull. And it's really great. Anytime we reach a limb across the midline, helps strengthen the connections in between the hemispheres in your brain, which is super cool. So we're gonna reach toward one shoulder if it's comfy. Find this area where the shoulder meets your neck and take a little press there, and then just drag the fingers forward and then float the hand across the torso. We'll do that on side two. Fingertips press into that muscle, drag it forward, and then float the hand across the torso. We'll do this again. You might take an inhale as you press the fingertips in, and then an exhale as the hand floats down. Inhale, fingertips anchor. Exhale down. This is also a good way to get rid of stress. You often hold stress here in these upper traps. So a little press and drag. One more. A little press and drag. And then just notice how things feel. They feel any different? And then we'll start to find our twist now on side two. So again, sitting tall, maybe tucking blocks in under the feet. And when you find your exhale, we'll take our twist, maybe sending an arm to the back of the chair if your chair has a good back and that it feels good for that. Inhale it back to center. Exhale, let's find that twist again. This time we might take the hand to the back of the head, and then we'll reach our elbow away from the direction that our collarbones are twisting. Inhale, release, bring it back to center. One more, let's take a nice long spine on the inhale. Exhale, find the twist. Maybe connecting hand to the back of the head and reaching the elbow away. And then as you inhale, find your way back to center. See if the shoulders need a shrug, if anything needs a little shift. And then another little fun thing that's thought to help us find calm is to go ahead and clasp the hands together and see which thumb ends up on top. If it's your left thumb, you'll take your left leg up first. And again, these crossing over patterns are really good for the brain. We'll take our right hand to the left ankle, or I might be mirroring you. This might be your right ankle. So the opposite hand holds the ankle. And then whichever leg is up, that hand is going to wrap around the bottom of the foot so the fingertips wrap down over the outside edge of your foot. And this is a funny shape. Sometimes it's called the Wayne Cook posture. Wayne Cook was a pioneer in exploring some of the energy systems in the body. And this is a great shape that you can just hold and sit in, trying to keep the spine tall if you can, or take a little hinge from the hip. This can become seated pigeon if we hinge dramatically from the hip, if you're looking to get a stretch while you're here. Or this shape, these crossover bits, are really good for your brain, and they can also help us find calm. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry, we'll start to release the hands. Give your ankle a little flex and point. And then if you'd like to take a seated pigeon, go ahead and sit the spine tall. Exhale, hinge from the hip, folding over the shin. And a little flex in the foot helps protect the knee here. No rush, no hurry. When you're ready, we'll bring it back up to center. And if you'd like, if it's comfy, you can play with floating the shin now. And we can take cradle the baby pose, which can look just like this, just floating the foot. Or you can also try bringing the foot into the opposite elbow. So you're cradling your shin. And this is a really great spot to practice some Svadhyaya and self-study, right? First of all, does your leg go where you would like it to? Can you be okay with where your leg goes? And just noticing where it's at in this moment. And you can gently rock if it feels good. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry, we'll release that foot. We might hug the knee in for a moment. And then gently bring that foot down toward the mat or to your block. And take a little shift. And then we'll prepare for side two. So Wayne Cook posture first. We'll bring ankle to top of thigh. And this side could feel really different. Whichever ankle you're using, you'll take the opposite hand. And if it feels like a brain teaser, it is. We're crossing over the midline. So it takes your brain a little time to figure this out. And then take whichever foot that is. If it's your right foot, your right hand, and wrap the hand around so the fingertips reach the outer edge of your foot. And again, we can just sit here with a nice tall spine, or we might have a little hinge from the hip to make this connection easier. And can you breathe into it? And you can give your foot a little squeeze if that feels good too. And then when you find an inhale, go ahead and release the hands sitting up tall. As you exhale, you might find that seated pigeon, taking the little flex in the foot and maybe folding forward. And it's really normal for this to feel very different from side one to side two. So breathing when you're here, breathing into the hip. And maybe you stay put right here. This might feel better than cradle the baby, so you might stay put here a little longer. Or maybe we're gonna go ahead and lift up and explore if we can float the foot up. We might stay here, or we might see a foot can find elbow, and we might just gently rock. And you can think of this, in a couple different ways. You can think of it as a way to be nurturing and caring for yourself. Giving yourself that gentle rock. Gentle rocking motions are often very soothing. Or you can think of it as pushing your boundaries and finding a big stretch. If you want to do it that way, you can. But sometimes when we approach these shapes with an attitude of nurturing, it helps take that edge of competing with ourselves off. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry, gently releasing the foot. If it's comfy to hug the knee in, do give it a little hug, and then bring your feet back to the mat or the blocks. And just notice how things are feeling. Now, chair yoga can be super gentle. Those shapes are not super gentle for a lot of folks, and they're not always within range of motion for others. But there's another shape I want to show you here in the chair that's useful to know. And this is Warrior Two. So you might orient your chair now so that it's on your mat, facing the long edge of your mat. And you might even slide it a little closer to one end than the other. And we'll start by opening one leg out to the short edge of the mat. And then just explore lengthening the other leg back. Now, depending on your chair, you might feel fine just seated as you are. Or if your chair is kind of poking into your leg, slide the hips back now. So your chair is supporting that bent thigh. And if you're like me and your foot doesn't touch when you do it, that's again the spot for your block so that the foot can anchor down. And just explore Warrior Two this way. You don't even have to float the hands, they could stay on the hips. But just notice how this shape feels with the support there under the thigh, under the hip. Feel free to wiggle it around if it's not where you'd like. And you might even play with a little reverse warrior on the inhale and a little side angle on the exhale. How does this feel with support? Inhale, maybe our reverse. Exhale, maybe our side angle. You might flow one more each way if it feels good. And then let's meet Warrior Two on the inhale. And as you exhale, you can play, just like we pressed up from the mat for our push-up, you can play with pressing into the feet to see if you can float up out of the chair, maybe. And then when you're ready, go ahead and settle it back down. And gently start to draw the feet back in. And you can bring them together if you like, or you might keep them out to the sides in a goddess pose shape. Just taking a breath in center, noticing how things feel. And then let's try that Warrior Two series on side two. So for me, I'm gonna slide my chair to make sure I can keep my feet on my mat. And I know I need a block. And I'll turn my foot toward the short edge of my mat. And then I'll explore lengthening out the other leg. And for me, I'm gonna slide my hips so that the chair can support the thigh versus both hips. Yeah, and it's not wrong to have both hips in the chair. That might work for your legs in your chair. We can float the arms. How's this side feel? Surprising how the prop can really shift things from one side to the other. You can just hold and stay put. Try to keep anchoring the feet through the 4 points if you can, even though you've got the chair. And then inhale, maybe reverse it. Exhale, maybe we side angle. Inhale, maybe reverse. Exhale, maybe side angle. One more each way. Maybe side angle. And then come back to that Warrior Two, taking a deep breath here. Now as you exhale, release the hands You can start to work the legs back in, your choice. Maybe you find goddess pose shaped legs, or maybe you bring feet to the mat. Your choice, both ways work. And just take a pause to notice how you feel. Notice if there's any echoes from the shape. And then let's take and use the chair again for a shape that you're probably very familiar with by this point. And that's downward facing dog. So now we can bring the chair toward one end of the mat. And we can use chair for a very gentle down dog by resting hands on the back of the chair, softening the knees and reaching the hips away. Or you can walk the hands down toward the seat of the chair. You might have to step the feet back a little further. That might give you a little bit more of that classic V shape in your down dog. Can you breathe when you're here? And then no rush, no hurry. When you're ready, we'll make our way back up toward the chair. Stand so that you're facing it for a moment. Inhale, fingertips up tall. Exhale, hinge and fold. Find your forward bend at the chair. Maybe going to the seat. And then we'll start to make our way down to the mat. Bending the knees. Now, depending on your chair, you might go ahead and slide it now, or you can use the chair just to help you down by walking the hands down from the chair. Your choice. You might have enough room to step back and find your down dog here, or if you're gonna bump into your chair, you can slide it off the mat now. And we're headed to yogi's choice. From your down dog, would your body like to flow? Plank, knees, chest, chin, cobra or up dog. Would your body like to rest? Maybe child pose. Find what feels good. And it might be something different. Maybe now you want to try warrior two standing. Go right ahead. And take your time. Noticing your breath. And then when you're ready, no rush, no hurry, we'll make our way back to meet in child pose on the mat. Notice if you can bring your breath toward the low back. And just notice how you're feeling. And does it feel like you've been able to keep mind and body working together as one unit? Does it feel like you've been kind to yourself in this practice? And then as you inhale, gently making your way up towards seated. As you find your seat, take a moment to give the shoulders a little roll or shrug. And then we have a couple important decisions to make. We can start to make our way toward restorative to keep this a gentle practice. And the chair offers us a couple great options for restorative. One of which being this little cross between legs up the wall and constructive rest, which is where we just float the calves and the heels in the chair. This is a great way to help decompress the low back So if you've got a cranky low back, you might go here and explore that shape. Or we might have a little bit of fun. Maybe if wrists feel healthy, if they don't, we'll imagine these engagements without pressing into the hands. Or if wrists feel healthy, we might have a little fun with scales pose or tolasana. So if you have your blocks make this easier. You can rest them outside the hips. And we can practice this from just an easy pose legs. If it's comfortable, crossing the legs adds a little bit more engagement to this. The classic pose uses lotus legs. And lotus pose legs, for some people, they're great. For others, they can really strain the knee. Because in lotus, that's where we're taking the foot toward the inner edge of where the leg meets the torso. And if your hip doesn't let you rotate that much, to get your foot there, that torque is gonna happen at the knee. So you can do this in lotus. If lotus is in your practice, if you love it, if your knees feel happy and healthy, you can practice this here. It does give you a little added engagement, but we can do it just fine with legs crossed too. So maybe if you're trying this, you'll think about the bandhas. Think about the bottom of the pelvic floor lifting up. Think about Uddiyana Bandha, drawing the belly in and lifting up. Not a strong clench, not as far as we can pull it in, but enough that we feel those muscles support us. I like to think of that as zipping up the core. And then pressing the palms down outside the hips if you're on the mat, or maybe using those blocks just outside the hips. We'll press the palms down and explore if we could float our hips up. And if the hips float, can the feet float? Can you breathe? And then just take a pause to practice a little Svadhyaya. Are you listening to your wrists? And if they feel happy, but maybe they just need a little more warmth, maybe you take a moment to give them a little press or flex. Are you listening to your core? Are you following your body's guidance, or are you just trying to get in the shape? There's, unfortunately no magic rainbow and pot of gold that appears when you do this. So listen to your body, be kind to yourself, and if you can't go quite where you'd like to go today, can you be okay with that? Can you meet that with compassion? So feel free to take your time and play with it. You can also play with different leg positions. One is sometimes called dangling earring pose, where we have hero's pose as our seat. And then you can press into the blocks from here and explore if you can float. And can you breathe while you do it? Can you be kind while you play? And then if you think you're being kind, but then you come down and you notice, oh, that wrist is grumpy, or oh, that feels a little pinchy, feel free to draw a couple of circles or to rest a hand on the place that needs a little comfort, offering a little support for the body there. So no rush, no hurry. When you're ready, when you've had enough fun playing with that, we'll start to shift and make our way down to the back. And if you have a bolster or a pillow wrapped in a blanket handy, you might bring that with you now. If you really wanted to try the feet floating in the chair, you can go there. Or you might start to come out of that shape if you were there by drawing the knees to the belly. And then you can bring feet to the mat to maybe slide your chair over. And how we'll use the bolster today is your choice. Option one is a gentle heart opener. This time of year, it's really great to help keep length here, helping some space for the lungs, helping to boost our posture. We can run the bolster the long way, resting the spine on the bolster, the hips on the mat. And the arms might open in a W shape, or they might rest with hands toward the hips. You can also add on to this by using your block, if you have one, tuck it in under the head of the bolster, just adding a little more of an incline to it. You can skip it if it doesn't feel good, of course. Your legs can rest anywhere they're comfy. It might be an easy pose, maybe Baddha Konasana, or constructive rest. So here's one option for our bolster. Or the other option to use it is for supported child's pose. Again, if you've got the block underneath, that can give us space for the arms to wrap around it. And you can separate the knees for a wide-leg child pose. And then just take the torso to rest on the bolster. Noticing your breath. And you don't have to have the block, you can skip that part. Or you can do your classic child pose with the knees together, and then just pull the bolster onto the belly, with or without a block here. Sometimes that feels really good for folks too. So take your time and find what feels good. And if you're there thinking, man, I wish Sam was saying to do that other restorative pose, go for it. Listen to your body's guidance. And then when you get to a comfy place, notice if you can let yourself rest while you're there. Or notice what is holding you back from resting. Is there a muscle that needs to release and let go? Maybe inhale, bring your breath toward that muscle. And when you exhale, think of letting everything soften and sink. Letting that tension release from the body with the breath. And if it's your mind, if your mind feels like it's busy, you might try focusing on your breath. And this is a point you might even try a little counting with your breath. You might inhale toward the belly for 4. And when you exhale, maybe you let it release through the mouth, making the exhale long and slow, maybe counting to 6 or even 8. When we have a longer exhale than inhale, that helps calm and invites the body to relax and rest. So take your time here in your restorative shape, just finding what feels best. And if you find your restorative shape feels like heaven now, you can stay put right here for Shavasana. Or at any point over the next few minutes, if you'd like to move to a traditional Shavasana. If your back is on the bolster, you might choose to roll to the side. If your belly's on the bolster, you might be pressing up to seated. And then for Shavasana, if you've got that bolster or that blanket, you might even tuck it in under the knees for Shavasana. If that feels good, that can help if you've got a cranky low back too. Shavasana can look like the classic pose, legs long, palms turned up, or it's always okay to rest where it feels best for you today. You might use your exhales to help release any tension around the jaw, around the eyes. And taking these next few minutes to integrate all the work, to integrate your experience. And all you have to do for that to happen is just breathe. When you are ready to bring motion back, you might start small with the hands and feet. And you might take a moment to see if it feels good to stretch the arms, to stretch the legs, as if you were waking up first thing in the morning. And taking any movement that feels good. And you might think about even offering yourself a little good morning greeting. Like, good morning, me. And if there's something that comes to mind you can be grateful for with yourself, you may take a moment to offer that. Good morning, me. I'm grateful for your energy and health and vitality today. Or maybe there's something else you're grateful for. And then no rush, no hurry. When you're ready, when you've had enough rocking, rolling, and stretching, we might make our way over to rest on one side or the other. We can use an inhale to help us press up towards seated. And when you find your seat, you might take blanket, bolster, block under the hips so that it's a nice comfy seat. See if the spine needs any movement. If the shoulders need a roll or shrug. Or if the neck needs any movement. And then one more fun little energy thing to show you too. Again, if it's comfy, this is one that you can hover over or you can touch. This is for the triple warmer meridian, and that's associated with the immune system and also when we're stressed. So hopefully after Shavasana you feel great. But this is another little tip and trick to have in the back of your head. Fingertips rest or hover over the temples. Take an inhale here. Exhale, slide the hands down behind the ears, down the neck to hang on this spot where the neck and shoulders meet. Take a deep breath in here. When you exhale, slide the hands down toward the heart. Let them rest or hover here. And if it felt good, then we can do that again. Fingertips to the temples. We slide back behind the ears, come down the neck to where the neck and the shoulders meet. Inhale here. Exhale, hands slide and pause, hovering over or resting on the heart. Now we might take one more just for good measure. Fingertips to the temples, let them hover or press as you take the fingertips back behind the ears, coming down to where the neck meets the shoulders. Inhale here. Exhale, slide hands down toward the heart. Pausing here. And then just noticing how you feel. Maybe holding the hands there to the heart if it feels good. Maybe resting hands to touch if that feels better in our Namaste or Anjali Mudra. And if you really like one more reach up, please feel free to take it. Taking an inhale up. Exhale, settle the hands toward the heart. Thank you for taking and making the time to practice today. It's such a pleasure to practice with you. And namaste.